Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, teen horror, genre classics and disturbing books. It's my weekly wrap-up. So we made it through another week, which is fantastic. I can't believe it's April already. It's really sunny here today in the UK as I'm filming this, but very chilly as well. I've just been out to the shops and there was a definite nip in the air. But yeah, the sun is streaming through the window and it definitely feels like a nice spring day. So I hope the weather is good wherever you are as you watch this. Anyway, normal format for this. So I'll talk about what I've been reading, talk about what I think I'm going to be reading in the week ahead, and then just talk about some channel stuff. So let you know what's been on the channel and what's coming on the channel, and I have a tiny book haul for you at the end of the video as well, and I may also at the end of the video eat this Nestle coffee crisp bar, which I got sent by fellow booktuber Duncan McCurdy, and showed in my weekly wrap-up video last week. So I've managed to resist the temptation to eat it so far, but I do quite fancy a snack this morning, so maybe I'll give this a chomp in a minute. So in terms of my reading update then, it's been a fantastic reading week for me. I finished 6 books, albeit a number of them were really short. And in terms of the things I'm tracking myself against, so I've now finished 96 books out of my Read What You Own challenge, where I'm reading 100 books I already own before buying any new ones. So very close to the end of that. 3 of the books I'm going to talk about in this wrap up today didn't count towards that challenge because they were like borrowed books that I was reading, that I'd borrowed for different reading events, so those don't count. And then in terms of my 50 books before I reach 50 challenge, what is it today? So as I film this, it's the 7th, so I've got 23 days to go. I've now read 40 of the 50, so I've got 10 more books. So will I do it? I don't know. I think I should do. I'm feeling more confident in it now than I was, especially as most of the books I've got left to go are relatively short. I've got one, The Crow Road, which I'm going to be starting soon, which I think is kind of 500 pages odd. But I think the rest of them are all fairly short books. So I think I can do it. I'm feeling more confident than I have been for a while on that. Anyway, let's talk about what I've read then. So I'll do the physical books first. So I just finished this morning a Philip K. Dick book, The 3 Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, from this Library of America collection. This was a very weird book. If you know Philip K. Dick, you know what to expect from his books, and this was a very typical Philip K. Dick book in that it mixes loads of different ideas. It's got kind of like drug references and things like that. It's got musings on religion. It's got a lot of stuff about kind of corporate culture and that kind of thing. He's a really interesting writer, and I always enjoy his books. I always get something interesting out of them. So this one is about this like competition. There's these 2 competing drugs, one called Candy and one called Choosy, and they're like hallucinogenic drugs. There's this guy Palmer Eldritch who's like travelled through space and gone to some alien galaxy and come back and maybe in some way infected with something. There's all sorts of corporate shenanigans going on. One of the things that's really interesting, I found really interesting about this book, and it was written in the 60s, is it's like really science fiction-y. Like there's a guy who's got like a psychiatrist like a robot psychiatrist he carries around in his suitcase. There's all sorts of space travel and like people with psychic ability, like people who can predict the future and things like that. And yet so much of it feels like Mad Men or something like that, in that it's guys who have female secretaries, who work in business, who drink cocktails, that kind of thing. So it was a very strange mix of things, but I enjoyed it. I'm not sure my brain was in quite the right place to take in all of the crazy ideas it was throwing at me, but I did have a good time with it. I also read, so this is something that could not be more different, The Second Suspect, I'll start again, The Second Suspect by H.E. Lewis, or Heather Lewis. So I've talked about her book Notice on the channel before, the most disturbing book I've ever read. So Notice is about a young woman who's a prostitute who gets involved with this married couple who do horrific things to her, basically. The Second Suspect is effectively a retelling of that story, but told as a mystery novel, where the book begins with a prostitute having been murdered by this couple, and it's about the detective who's investigating that crime. So I'm going to do a full review on this, I think, because it like, threw up a lot of interesting thoughts, or thoughts that I thought were interesting anyway. And it worked for the most part. It wasn't perfect as a mystery, but it was really, really interesting to read it as a retelling of Notice and of Heather Lewis, kind of replaying those events and looking at them from a different angle. So a really fascinating book. But yeah, I think I'm going to do a proper review of it because I've got a fair bit to say about it. Another crime novel then. So I read the Real Cool Killers by Chester Himes, which is the second in his Harlem cycle of novels. I really, really enjoyed this. I think I enjoyed it more than The Rage in Harlem, which is the first one. So it's about a white man gets killed in Harlem after like a bar fight. The book opens with this bar fight, which is just the most incredible, over the top, like graphically violent scene. It was just fantastic. This white guy who's involved in that bar fight manages to get out of the bar and then gets shot. And it's about the investigation into his murder by Himes's two kind of chief detective characters. Coffinhead Johnson and Gravedigger Jones, who are these fantastic Harlem detectives. So a really good, really enjoyable mystery. The actual kind of resolution of the mystery was I thought really well handled. So I really enjoyed it as a mystery, but it just works fantastically as a novel about 50s Harlem as well. So just full of incident and colour and interesting characters. Himes is really, really good. I'm really enjoying his stuff. So yeah, looking forward to continuing with the Harlem cycle soon. So that's the physical stuff I read then. In terms of Kindle books, and all of those books counted towards my both my 50 before 50 and my 100 book challenge. So in terms of Kindle books then, I read a book called Transmuted by an author called Eve Harms. So this was my Patreon book club pick for this month. So my patrons chose this for us to read. It also counts towards the reading event Transgirl April, which is going on in April. So this is a book by a trans author, which is a really interesting mix of kind of horror and kind of quite heartfelt commentary on what it's like to be a trans person. I really, really liked it. And the horror is of the kind of B-movie style and quite over the top. So basically it's about this young trans woman who wants to have, like transitional surgery. And for various reasons, she's managed to get the money together to do it and then can't afford it. And ends up going to this creepy doctor guy who she sees like an advert for on Instagram. And the kind of mad scientist kind of stuff goes off from there. So it was just really interesting and just really enjoyable as well as a horror story. But as I say, a really interesting insight into what it's like to be trans too. So I found it fascinating and thought it felt like a really good pick for me personally for Transgirl April, because it was the kind of book I enjoy reading, but it also gave me that extra insight. So yeah, that was good. I then read The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. So his classic novel of people, kind of fleeing poverty in 30s America and travelling across the country to get to California. Wow, what a powerful book! I really thought this was fantastic. Definitely very political and very openly political and a bit preachy at times, but I didn't mind that at all about it. Great characters, really moving, just a fantastic book. I can see why it's so well regarded. I did think it was probably a little bit longer than it could have been. It felt to me like it dragged a little bit in the middle, but so powerful, hard to fault it. I've just realised I forgot to get out one of the books that I read this week. And I forgot to put it on my list. So let me see if I can pull it out from under this stack of books without the stack of books falling over. So the reason I've thought of this is it's another book set in 30s California, a completely different side to California. So the California in The Grapes of Wrath is very exploitative California, where these people, these economic migrants basically, who've travelled across the country, get terribly exploited by people who own like fruit farms. This book, completely different. So, Double Indemnity by James M. Cain, also came out in the 30s, also set in California. So, a fantastic crime novel, a classic noir about this woman, who basically meets an insurance salesman, and together they cook up a plot to murder her husband and claim the insurance money. Just brilliant, just perfect. Absolutely perfect. I really, really loved it. I won't go into more detail than that because it's not a long book. But if you like crime fiction, I thoroughly recommend it. I thought it was just brilliantly done. I can't believe I somehow missed that off of my list. Right. So moving on then. So other things I've read then. So for the Old School April event, I read Welcome to Dead House by R.L. Stine. So this is the first of the Goosebumps books, and this was also the pick for my birth year book club that I run on my Discord server. So a kind of middle grade horror book, surprisingly creepier than I was expecting it to be. And I've only read, I think, one other Goosebumps book which just felt a bit fluffy and silly, but this was genuinely quite creepy. So it's about a family who moved to this town. This basically an uncle that the dad, and this should have sent up all sorts of red flags. So the dad gets a letter from a solicitor basically saying your uncle, who you've never heard of, has died and left you this house. So they move to this house, and all the local kids are a bit weird. And gradually, more and more of the local kids say to the two kids that have moved there that they used to live in that house, and you realise something weird's going on. So I won't spoil it, but it was fun. It was a really enjoyable, quick read. And then I'm currently reading, so let me just check my list. I think that's everything I've talked about. Yep. So I'm currently reading another book for Old School April. So this is a book also by R.L. Stine in the Fear Street series. So the first Fear Street book I've read. I wasn't planning on reading this month, but I think I've got time to fit it in because it's really short. It's like 140 pages, and it's a YA book, so it's really quick to read. So it's called The Boy Next Door. So I'm about a quarter of the way through that, and it's really enjoyable so far. So it's the prologue is basically written in the first person, and this guy, like teenage boy, like basically he doesn't exactly murder his girlfriend, but he deliberately causes her death. He allows an accident to happen that he could have prevented basically. He then has moved to another town, and the local girls all think he's really hot and are having a competition to see who can seduce him first, or no, maybe seduce is too strong a word, to see who can go on a date with him first. But he's clearly psychologically messed up. So it's really entertaining. I'm enjoying it a lot so far, and I can see why these books were so so popular and are so beloved by by a lot of people on Horror BookTube. So that's what I've read and I'm currently reading. In terms of what's next then, so as I said, I think I'm going to read The Crow Road by Ian Banks next. I fancy something a bit longer that I can kind of sink into. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then I've got a few mysteries on my TBR for this month as well, which I think I'm gonna dive into. So I've got the Godwolf manuscript by Robert B. Parker. And Faceless Killers by Henning Mankell. I think one of those will probably be next after The Crow Road. So in terms of channel stuff then, I've done my March wrap-up where I talk about and rank all the books I read in March. I did a video reflecting on my reading in the first quarter of the year and just talking about notable books from my reading in that period. I did a double review of two kind of paperbacks from hell about vicious animals. So Rage by Jack Ramsey and The Cats by Nick Sharman. I did another review video for a modern horror book called Suicide Forest by Jeremy Bates. And I've done my 10 80s horror books that I think are really representative of the decade video as well. In terms of the week ahead then, I just need to move my microphone so I can see my list. So I've done a kind of a video that you see on BookTube every so often, which I'd never done before, but it was really fun to do. So that's Reread, Rewrite or Burn, where you take 3 books and decide which one you reread, which one you rewrite and which one you burn. So I've done a Stephen King version of that where I talk about various Stephen King books. I've got another kind of double vintage horror review, so The Spear by James Herbert and The Devils of D-Day by, I forgot his name, Graham Masterton. I've also got a review of the classic horror short story, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. and a update video on my Disturbing Books project. So I haven't done an update video for a while, so just talking about which books I've read over the last few months for that project and what's coming up next, and just my general thinking about how that project is going. And then I've also done a video about 5 like genre authors whose works are considered classics. So that's something that's kind of been bouncing around in my head for a while, and I've done a video talking about that as well. So that's all the channel stuff out of the way. So mini book haul, and then I'm going to eat this coffee crisp bar, or some of it anyway. So only one thing coming this week, but it's so cute. I love it. So this came from Regina St. Clair, host of Regina's Haunted Library. So this is something she sent out to her patrons, which is a new like fanzine that she's created. So a book zine called Bookworms, which is just, I really like it. It's really, really cute. So I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it's got, I think, an article or two in it, some short fiction as well, and also like some nice illustrations, and it's even got like a puzzle. So I think this is really, really cute. I'm very much looking forward to giving this a read soon. Right, time to eat the chocolate bar. So I've got no idea what this is going to be like. I've got no idea if I'll get through all of it. I might eat half it now and then have the other half with a cup of tea later. But yes, I'm intrigued because these are not available in the UK. So let me open it up and give it a try. So this is a Nestle coffee crisp bar, which apparently they're very popular in Canada. I need to say, obviously, that Nestle are a pretty horrific corporation who do terrible things. So this is certainly not an endorsement of their business practices. But yes, I'm going to give it a bite and see what it's like. That's quite nice. So it's kind of a sort of wafer type thing inside. I was expecting for some reason it to be like a toffee crisp, which is obviously really chewy. I'd say it's more like a Kit Kat crunchy, but with a hint of coffee as well. So yeah, really quite pleasant. So thank you, Duncan. I shall enjoy the rest of this with a cup of tea later, or maybe a cup of coffee. It feels like it should go with a cup of coffee. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not intending to make eating chocolate bars a regular feature of the channel, but yeah, hopefully you found that interesting. Anyway, let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about. Let me know what you've been reading this week. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.